Hey everybody, thanks for joining. We're going to start in a couple minutes. Give a few more folks time to join in. So be with you in a couple minutes. While we wait, feel free to say hello in the Q&A, but also let me know if you can hear me in the Q&A. Great, thanks for letting me know you can hear me. Again, we'll get started in about a minute here. Make some introductions. I've got some of my peers online as well. So we'll get started in about 30 seconds. All right. So I see folks are still coming in to the stream, but we will go ahead and get started. We're at 10:01, according to my clock. So we'll go ahead and get started here. Thank you for joining or for watching if you're checking out the recording. This is what we call office hours for teams, where we hope to, on a regular basis, really, bring folks together that want to hear, what's the latest with teams, tips and tricks, all that good stuff, and hopefully Q&A. So even as we are talking now, if you've got some burning question that maybe you came here to get answered, please put that in the Q&A, and we're going to be monitoring that and hopefully answer or show things, whatever it may be. So we really want you to be able to use this as a chance to talk to us live. So from an introduction perspective, my name is Ricardo Wilkins, and I'm a Senior Customer Success Manager with Microsoft for Teams and Office 365. And I got two of my peers on as well. Stacy and Asaita, if you can introduce yourselves.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Asaita, and I'm a Customer Success Manager working with Ricardo.
Good morning, I'm Stacy Mildenberger, also a Customer Success Manager for Modern Workplace, and I enjoy being on Ricardo's team.
Thanks. And yeah, all three of us support public sector specifically. So we cover states across the country. And so they're going to be monitoring the Q&A. So again, feel free to put questions in there, as I talk through it. I'm going to talk through a few things here, but they'll shout out questions as needed. And really what I thought we'd talk about today are a few things. I know many of you are coming here now newly, maybe working from home and looking for, you're using Teams from your home workplace and looking for tips and tricks. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But, I thought we'd talk one about live events, which we're using right now. And I thought I'd talk about that because I believe many of you probably own live events today. Most of the invitations I sent out, at least, were for my accounts. And most, if not all of my accounts, I know own live events. We'll talk real quick about that, just so you know what that is and what the possibilities are there. And then we'll talk about Teams and meetings, a little overview, demo across both of those. But then get into, hey, what do I need to know to really get going and be successful with this tool and collaborate better? And then again, hopefully, Q&A across the board. So that's what we'll go through in the next, 60 minutes. Will it cover everything? Probably not, because my plan and my hope is that we can continue to have these sessions on a regular basis. So this doesn't need to be the one end all kind of a session, but hopefully it gives you a good start, especially for those that are brand new to the tool. So let's dive right in here. And first, oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Right before you join, a quick question, and I hear this a lot, so that's why I'm voicing it. Thanks for hosting this event. When hosting a meeting on Teams using the conference phone number, is it possible to turn off the announcements of people's name when they join and exit?
Yeah, it definitely is. I believe it's a setting at the tenant level, and so especially if you're in a shared tenant environment, that would have to be like a policy that would need to get set for whichever users want that. But yeah, absolutely, you can have meetings where that announcement isn't made. Okay, so great question, absolutely. So let's jump in a little bit here. Teams live events, what is that? And that's really what you're watching right now as attendees. Myself, Asaita, and Stacy are in as what we would call presenters or producers. And really what it is this ability to, basically do webinar style events like this. If you may not know, but when you're in a Teams meeting, a regular Teams meeting, you can actually fit up to 250 people in that meeting. And you can talk back and forth two-way, people can come off mute and collaborate and do whatever they want to do. But a live event can fit up to 10,000 people. And most of those attendees, like yourself, aren't able to actually talk, right? You don't have to worry about muting your mic or anything, because you're really just watching and interacting with the Q&A, while the presenters, producers are talking and sharing their screen like we're doing. And so really, when we look at this thing here, it's kind of talking about the spectrum, and really the Teams live event is what I kind of call the easy button for live events. It's that self-produced, fire it up on your PC and you're up and running, doing a webinar like I am doing right now. You'll see to the right there, that studio produced one. I mean, the live event technology does have the ability for a more, complex, studio production, multiple cameras and audio and all those kind of things. And I don't know much about, that level of it. But for those that were looking at that, and these days, many people are looking at live events because of all the, public broadcasts that they'd like to do. So there are options there, but Teams live events really is, again, what I call the easy button, where in a couple minutes, you can schedule this thing and you're up and running. Without a lot of technical knowledge really being needed. So Teams live events, comes with most of the subscriptions that you guys have, at least if you're, one of my customers. So it's something you have today. And I thought I'd just show it real quickly because it is really that simple. So let me shift over here. I'm gonna go share another piece here. Go right there. And so I think now you can see my demo environment. And so what we're looking at here again is a demo environment. It's a GCC or government cloud, version of Teams. And really the Teams itself is the same when I say version, but there are certain features that are in commercial that are not in government. So this represents the government cloud. But if I were to do a Teams live event, it's pretty much as simple as doing a regular meeting. If I come here to the calendar here on the side, and we'll do an overview of Teams in a sec, but specifically for a live event, if I go over to calendar and I go hit a new meeting, you'll see this comes up just like it would kind of in Outlook. But what we have is new meeting, and then we have a drop down for a new live event. And it's also looks similar to just creating a new meeting. I could, say, what this meeting is about. I can really ignore location, set a time and whatnot, description, and then I can add presenters who I would be the producer in this case. Who do I want to be able to present in this? I can add those people at this time. When I've done all that, I hit next. I've got some options here about whether I just want this to be accessible from the people in my organization, or do I want it to be public like this event here is. So I can make that choice here. And then as I scroll down, I've got a few more options. the recording being available as this one is being recorded and will be available to you with the same link you just used this morning. You use that same link after this event to see the recording. Captionings can be done. I get a report about, the attendee engagement questions that got asked and whatnot, and then I also want to make sure I check the box to allow for that Q&A window that you're seeing and using right now. And that's really it. I would hit schedule, and we'll be up and running. And then so, in fact, I'll do that here real quick, because the last part I wanted to show, there's the attendee link there, but I'll go ahead and join just to show what the environment looks like. So from my perspective, it looks like I'm joining a meeting here. But as a producer, see I'm joining as a producer, you'll see what my interface looks like. So I'll give it all of these here. And essentially what I have is almost like being a TV producer, right? The different presenters in the meeting will have content that they can share, and I'll decide, which content I want to queue up. And then when it's ready, I hit the send live and it goes over to the live area that the attendees will see. So that's it really. I mean, it's pretty easy to manage and maintain. I can also view the Q&A window on the side to see new questions that are coming in. We can publish certain ones and all that good stuff. So that's really it really. And from here, I'd really start the meeting, and then I'd kind of just go and let it happen. But it's as simple as that. So it's doesn't need a lot of technical, high-end technical ability. Hopefully that looked pretty easy to you. I think it's pretty easy. So again, that's something you have today. The question I get often is, does it have a traditional phone number for those 10,000 people to call in? And so no, they would be, accessing it through their browser as you're doing today. There's not a phone bridge for the 10,000 people, but if your attendees or your audience are able to join via web, you have that ability there for you. So hopefully that was helpful. Let me switch back to my slides here. Any other questions on that have come in?
We've just been answering some questions. There seems to be a question around when a participant that is speaking appears on the screen during a video chat, is there a way to have all participants appear on the screen during a video chat? Something to answer that. You can answer to it, speak to it.
Yeah, because I've gotten that question lately too. When you're in a Teams meeting with video showing, you get what I tend to call that Brady Bunch look, right? The squares on the screen, and you get 4 today. I think there's a roadmap or we're looking at 9 on that screen, but you get 4 today, and the rest are like thumbnails at the bottom. As someone talks, they become one of the 4 and bump somebody out. So you always see the 4 active people to that from that perspective. But today, no more than 4 at a time up on the big screen.
And then another question is, how long is the meeting recording available after the meeting is over?
Yeah, for live events, it actually sits out there for up to 180 days. But as the producer of the live event, you can also download the video file, the MP4, and then put that wherever you want. So a lot of people will take that and put that into their stream area, which most of you also own as well. So you can take the video and do whatever you want, but without doing anything, that video will be there for the attendees as long as you click that link for 180 days.
Last question, if you add video, is there still voice over, or does the video audio take over? Oh, yeah, I guess they're asking, in a live event, are you able to show a video? Would be a good one to answer.
Right. These are all great questions. These are ones I've been getting often lately. So the short answer there is currently no. When you show a video, the audio doesn't come with it for the live events. In a Teams meeting, I think maybe 6 or 8 months ago, we did add the feature for you to share your system audio. So in a Teams meeting with that 250 or less, you can show a video with the audio, as long as you make sure you kind of click the system audio checkbox. So it's there for the Teams meeting, normal Teams meeting, but not for live events, at least as of right now. I know that's a highly requested feature.
Another one is there a way to see who other attendees are here besides yourself?
Yeah, so I do, from a live events perspective, I do get the total kind of count of how many people are here, but I don't get to see everybody's names. I see names as they're coming in with Q&A, assuming you're not, as an anonymous. But no, I don't get a full list of what could potentially be 10,000 people who are in the meeting at any given time. The engagement report at the end, though, again, depending on how the person logs in, if they actually sign in or put their name in, that gives me a little more info about who joined and who left and what time they joined, what time they left. But as of right now, during the live event, no, I don't see that full list. Okay.
Is Teams live event available for all GCC users?
It is available in GCC. In fact, what I just demoed was a GCC tenant, so that was live events in GCC. I'm not completely up on all my licensing, but I think for sure E3 or G3, or certainly E5. I'm not sure about E1, but I believe E3 and E5. And Stacy and Saida can keep me honest, but I believe those definitely come with live events, even if in
E3.
GCC.
Yes, E3 or above.
Yep. Okay. So let's transition here. So I think a lot of folks, so now if we're talking about Teams in general, right, we're moving away from Teams live event, talking about Teams in general, right? What is that? And sometimes I think I like to start from the perspective of what is Skype versus Teams, because I know a lot of people are transitioning from using Skype for Business as their primary chat and meeting tool. So you can kind of see that was really what Skype was meant to be, is, chat, calls, meetings, and your contacts. But Teams is that and more. So sometimes people consider Teams to just be the new replacement for Skype. It certainly does what Skype does, as this visual hopefully shows, but it does a lot more than what Skype ever had intended to do. Skype for Business Online goes away next year, next summer. So that's why the transition to Teams is definitely important. So in addition to being that place for chats and meetings, it's also that place for document storage, for collaboration with your team and managing projects, and also for integrating business applications and apps. And we'll talk about that in a sec. But yeah, so that's definitely it's not just the new Skype. It is a tool that's meant to be your one-stop shop for all your teamwork needs. And as we kind of go through that, these are usually the top pillars that I talk about in a nutshell when I try to understand what Teams is and why do people need to use it, right? The communication, the ability to chat in one single hub, right, is what's really key. Whether it's one-on-one chats, which is what's most similar to Skype for Business, or team chats, which is kind of analogous to what you're doing today in your email inboxes, whether it's on different devices, mobile phones, but having that one single hub to communicate with threaded conversations and persistent chats that are, scoped into channels, so that it's kind of self-organizing, and allows, it's really great for onboarding new people who can now come in and see in a very intuitive way what has happened, before they got on the team, and things of that nature. So
Ricardo?
Communicating is important. Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Some people may seem to be hearing echoes and duplicates. Do you want to quickly show the device setting option to just check they can play around with their speakers and? Okay.
So they're hearing echo now, or?
Unfortunately, I seem to be having a problem in this live stream. You're saying everything twice.
Interesting. Maybe if you guys stay muted, maybe that will help, hopefully, because I don't know what I can do on my end for that.
I don't think you can do anything, but maybe on their end, they can go to the settings and maybe change either the speaker or mic settings, or maybe if they are dialed in on two devices, disconnect from one. That can tend to cause an echo. Right. Yeah. If you're on two, mute one of those.
Not sure I can show that other than, are you talking about showing in the Teams, the devices area? I can show that.
Yes, there's one in live events as well at the top right corner.
Okay. Let me go to my demo environment. So I think we're talking about the device settings here. You have your devices, and in this it looks a little weird because I'm on a remote desktop, so I may not have a really great way of kind of showing this, but you know, if you're in a meeting here, you do always have that little gearbox that lets you show your audio and microphone devices. So kind of make sure those are set appropriately, as well as a mute button that you may have, which shouldn't affect the live event. So hopefully that helps. Switch back to the presentation here. So we talked about chatting, communication through chat is one pillar, the ability to communicate securely. You know, I know a lot of folks sometimes will try to mash up different applications in order to, you know, how do I share my files? How do I, you know, communicate with people outside of my organization, things of that nature. So having, you know, all of that in one single hub is useful as well as, you know, from a tenant perspective, being able to manage and control all of those things as well. Particularly in the government cloud, you have a large set of compliances related to the cloud to kind of give you that confidence of security. E-discovery and things of that nature are all part of Teams as well. So it, you know, it plays nicely from a security and compliance perspective. Not to mention multi-factor authentication, MFA as well. So that securely collaborating piece is key. From a meetings perspective, and we've been talking about that, right? But again, one-stop shop to both have your meetings, whether it's client to client, you know, you're doing video chat and audio through your PCs, but you even have the ability to, you know, let Teams be your, you know, ability to call out, right? Make outbound calls, all of those things. And so when fully configured, I mean, it literally can be your single unified communications tool across the board. But we'll talk more about meetings here in a sec. And then the last one here from a pillars perspective is just that ability of integrating the processes or the websites that you have today and even the apps. So in the government cloud, for instance, you've got third-party apps enabled maybe a month or two ago. So potentially some of your favorite third-party apps may have a app integration into Teams that allows you to, again, use those apps without having to go out to another browser, have them a little more integrated into your one-stop shop. So and you know, and at some point, I suspect your own custom apps and things of that nature can be added as well. So you know, as this thing continues to progress, I can't say it enough. It really begins to become this single pane of glass for all the things you do from a teamwork perspective.
Ricardo. Sorry to interrupt again. There's a question on here. Can you explain or demonstrate the transcript capabilities of Teams? Do they apply to live events? And I'm also going to read the second question and let you answer it together. Can you give us specifics on how you are all configured for this? Who's producer and who's a presenter? Safe to assume the person asking the questions is a presenter, and are you just using her audio at will?
So in this case, I'll answer that one first. I happen to be the producer, so I'm actually, you know, giving this presentation and controlling, you know, what's getting shared. It could have been that Asita or Stacy could have been that as well. This just happens to be the way that we did it. So Asita and Stacy are here as presenters, which lets them, you know, interact with the Q&A. They could certainly present things if they needed to. So yeah, if I'd have thought about it maybe 5 more minutes, maybe I would have made one of them a producer so I wouldn't have to worry about the sharing of content. But in this case, I happen to be the producer of this as well. And in terms of transcripts, you know, so Stream, I think, is the power behind the auto transcription. So when you're recording either a Teams meeting or anything and putting it into Stream, you know, after it gets some time to render, it's auto transcribing the audio from that video and turn it into text, which is searchable. So I believe Stream is the power behind of all that, and that should be something most of you own as well. Captioning, as you saw in my screenshot, I think for GCC is maybe, I can't remember if that's still pending. I don't know, Stacy or Saita, if you know if captioning for live events is in GCC right now or still pending, but
Still pending.
Still pending, yeah. But when it comes, it's real time auto transcription of what I'm saying as I say it. So those features are there as well.
But once you download it to stream, then on the stream you will have the captioning.
Right. So I'm going to talk about meetings, and to do that, I'm going to jump over into the demo environment again. Let's see here, and we're going to share that out. So in fact, I had already started to fire up a meeting, and again, as I went to my calendar, and in this case, I just went to Meet Now. So I could certainly schedule a meeting, but say you're talking to someone or you just decide you really need to meet now, as the button implies, I can click that and I'm about to jump right into a meeting, right? And so I'm going to go ahead and hit join now. And that brings me into this meeting environment. And so little overview of what we got here in terms of a meeting. Obviously, I'm the only one here, but as people were to come in, I would see the participants on the side. Typically, that would be their name if you're meeting with team members in your organization. If it's guests, they typically need to put their name in as well. So you see everybody here in their names. Key piece of information here is you see a mute button that you'll see across all of them. And if there were more people in here, you'd even see a mute all button. So that's key, right? We all have those, online meetings where someone's background noise maybe is distracting. So to be able to mute them, they can unmute themselves later, but to be able to mute them is pretty useful. And as we look here at this little banner, which comes as you kind of hover over this area, you'll see a few things. So one, this is my camera button for turning my camera on. And I also, if I were to do that, I also have background blur, if you've heard of that, that allows the AI to show your face clearly and the background be blurred. But that's video, that's audio, and that's where my mute button would be. This third one is the share button, where I can share something to the meeting, whether it's my full desktop or a particular window or even uploading a PowerPoint. And here's that little include system audio checkbox I talked about. So that's the sharing button. Let me skip the three dots for a second. The little chat icon there is where we have our chat piece, so that yes, we could be talking, showing video, hearing audio, but we might want to also put messages on the side as well. That becomes useful if, say, somebody's got a URL they just mentioned that they want to share, put that in the chat, or anything else that just makes sense to put in text while you're in the meeting. And then the last one is the show participants button. The one in the middle is got a few more options worth mentioning. So you're in the meeting, that's where you have this show device settings. So if someone can't hear you or something's going on, you come in here to make sure you've chosen the right audio device. If you're like me, I've got, I think, 2 or 3 different kind of headsets, that I might use. So I may need to choose a different one. Again, this looks different because I'm in a remote environment here. Where do I want the music, the audio to come out of, which speaker? And then which microphones. Again, if you're only using the PC, maybe this is not too complicated, but when you start having multiple Bluetooth devices and all those kind of things, this becomes important. What's also in there, again, and if I had more people in and whatnot, you would see background blur. The other one to note is the start recording. So these can be easily recorded, and that recording goes into stream after the fact. What's nice about this, among other things, is if you were Skype for Business users and ever kind of were used to recording those meetings, it was a multi-step process, right? This one is a pretty easy no-brainer. I hit start recording, I hit stop recording at the end. I don't have to worry about getting the MP4, figuring out where to put it so that all the participants can see it or anything like that. It goes into stream. Everybody in my team will have access to it. And life is good. So it's a very elegant recording option, at least if compared to, older techniques for recording videos. But that's the gist of it. Again, if there were more people in this meeting, I'd have the 4 Brady Bunch squares here, and I'd have the other attendees of the meeting down at the bottom. Again, this is a regular Teams meeting, 250 people or less, not the Teams live event piece. So this is the meeting, and as you can see, I still have Teams things, which I'm about to talk about in a sec, still around. So I can still click around and do work if I'm trying to multitask in a meeting, but this is my main Teams interface. So I wanted to show that briefly, and then kind of talk a little bit more about meetings over in the deck. Again, I'm going to come back and show a little bit more about Teams here in a sec, but let me come back to the slides for a sec. And go here. So just to talk about meetings, right? Since you're now going to probably start having many more, home meet or web-based meetings, let's say. Just thinking about the life cycle of meetings, I think is key. And I'm not going to drain this slide, but just thinking about that before, during, and after, right? So before, who am I inviting? And that includes, from a Teams perspective, external guests as well. So there's different levels of kind of bringing external people in, but from a meeting perspective, it can be as easy as just sharing, either inviting them or sharing the one link to the meeting and allowing that person to come in. And what's key, I get the question all the time, is that person doesn't have to be a full-blown Teams user. They don't necessarily have to install the app to join your meeting. They've got internet in the browser. Or internet and or in a phone and the phone app, they can come in. So from a meeting perspective, it's pretty easy. Bringing them into your meeting doesn't bring them into your team and show them everything, all the files of your organization. It's just getting them into that meeting. So that can be pretty useful as you're trying to collaborate with external folks. So just understanding who you want to invite ahead of time, being able to use Teams in the files area to access things and kind of get prepped for the meeting. Those are all useful pieces to that before aspect. And then during the meeting, we just kind of saw that, right? What the options are related to, whether it be muting, whether it be, sharing my screen, those kind of things are all a part of that during interface. I always like to point out Teams is kind of built from scratch per se. It's not like we took Skype and painted a little Teams on top of it, right? So what we tend to hear is that there's a high quality video, audio experience, and so that's kind of what that first bullet is really about. But then also, again, the ability to share, even the ability to remote control each other's share, right? You could share a desktop and someone could kind of move your mouse, and that's perfect for like help desk scenarios where, hey, I'm showing you what I'm doing. Can you take control of my mouse and click where you need to click? Those kind of things. Those are all part of that meeting experience as well. And then after, certainly if you've recorded the meeting, having that available after the fact is useful. I know I'm often, double, triple booked, as I'm sure many of you are. I really depend on people recording meetings so that I can watch them later. I don't know how I'd keep up without that recording after the fact. And in the ability to kind of follow up with the folks that were in that meeting, continue the chat that may have started in the meeting and things of that nature. So just thinking about the life cycle of, the meeting concept is really what that's about. Okay. And so speaking about that, again, I was just thinking about, so many of our users kind of shifting the way they work now, working from home. And so as you're doing that, I wrote an article about what are those 3 things that you should be thinking about as you're kind of starting to meet with your coworkers in a new way for the first time. So my number 1 tip was just be aware of your mute button, right? There's some folks like myself that are a little, obsessive about, that mute button. And if I hear that background noise, I just wonder, like, why don't they mute themselves? So be aware of that for the sake of, if you have any team members that are like me, to just help them out. But be aware of your mute button and any background noise, especially given that your background noise these days might be a little more awkward than the background noise you would have had in the office. So be aware of the mute button. Also, I would suggest turning on your camera. We all know what we look like, right? You're not, what are you hiding, right? So turn the camera on, don't be shy. But also that's important because, when you were in the office, you had the benefit of each other's body language, and that's an important part of our communication. So we don't have to lose that. Turn on our cameras. Let's, keep it keep it visual as well as audio, and you have the capabilities to do that. And then lastly, I'd say as you're doing meetings, virtually, sometimes there's a tendency to just go back to back, right? And still the same way you kind of gave a little time for people to walk from conference room A to conference room B, do the same there. I know the My Analytics tool that you probably own as well told me once back in the day that maybe I should start having 45-minute meetings instead of 60 minutes. And that I really think that helps from the perspective of most meetings go over, but you can now go over without impeding on the next meeting. But that also gives folks just a chance to, whether it's just decompress after the meeting, or in this case, when you have back-to-back, sometimes there are other needs that need to get met between meetings. So, give people a chance to take care of that. So those are my top 3 tips for working from home with Teams, or really with any platform. So before I go here, let me go back to Teams and give a quick overview of everything that's a part of it. We really focused on the meeting concept so far, but I also want to talk a little bit about Teams in general. Let me switch back to that guy. So I'm going to go here. We're in my demo environment, and so let's take a little tour here. So we have our kind of key areas here on the side. And really where I'm going to start is here with the chat icon. And the reason I start here is because this is what we would call private chat or one-on-one chat. This is probably this one button among all these others is probably the one thing that essentially equates to Skype functionality. This is where you come and can start a chat up with anybody in the organization, as you would today with Skype, to have a one-on-one chat with someone. So I can say, look for my buddy Nestor, chat with him, and you'll notice, unlike Skype, my chats from November are still there. So Teams is persistent chat. So we can have a long-running conversation. We can go back and see chat messages, even files that we've shared, and I can just continue the conversation with Nestor back and forth. So this is one-to-one chat, what we would call it. It is very easy, though, to make this a group chat. If I add, let's say, who's my other friend? Let's say Joanna, can add her in, and suddenly it becomes a multi-chat. And trying to see if I can show the feature. Let's see, yeah, I'll go here. So here I am, chatting with a couple of people. I'm going to try to add another person here. So I'm chatting with Joni and Nestor. I'm going to add another person, and this is what I wanted to see. I like the intelligence that's here, because being that these are persistent chats, we could have been talking for 6 months. Now when I add a third person or another person, I don't necessarily need them to see everything we've been talking about for the last 6 months. So this gives me options about how I want to bring that new person in. Maybe I do want to include all the chat, or maybe I'm bringing them in just because the last day or so we've been talking about things that are related to them. So maybe I'll choose that option, or maybe I'll just want to start fresh with a new group. So that feature is pretty useful. And you can see on the side, all of these conversations are kind of being stored here, my recent ones, and even ones I pin, like, this one, apparently I really want quick and easy access to this conversation. So I pinned it up here, just by using the pin button. So this is chat. Again, unlike Skype, we also can share files with each other. In this case, we haven't, but as we start sharing files, which requires us our OneDrive accounts in order to do that in the one-to-one chat, those get stored here as well. And so you might imagine after time, the 4 of us or whatever that are talking here, this becomes a little mini team, right? We've got chat from months and months. We've got files that we've shared. I even got the ability to add a few tabs to this chat area. So that becomes pretty useful over time. So this is the private chat
Ricardo.
area. Yes.
Ricardo, we have a question around how do you delete chats?
Yeah, so you can definitely delete your own. That's here. You can even edit your own, which is great, right? You don't have to live with typos. You can edit your own as well, but you can also delete your own. You can't go deleting other people's chat. So it's really the chats you own are the ones that you can delete. So that option, and if it wasn't obvious, that option, as I hovered over a particular message, you get the 3 dots here, which gives you those options in addition to the nice, cute emoticons and thumbs up there. So that the 3 dots is super useful. And that applies whether it's one-on-one chat or a Teams chat, which we're about to go to in a second. While I'm here, though, whether it's Teams chat or one-on-one chat, let's take a look at this bottom area here. You'll see that I got a bunch of options here, and really this doesn't have to be just black and white text like Skype would typically be. I'm going to go ahead and hit this format button, and I got a few more options here. And even if as I actually, oops, I have switched back. Hit it was called the format button, but the little A button here, you can see I've got a whole slew of things, whether it's, bullets, bodes, highlight colors, adding hyperlinks. And if I hit the 3 dots, especially if you're developers using Teams, you can put nice, elegant code snippets in, all of these things. So this message can kind of be as richly formatted as an email, right? So it doesn't just have to be quick little 1 or 2 sentences. There can be bullets and paragraphs and whatnot. So that's a good thing to keep in mind. Also along the bottom, then I have ability to upload or share links to files. I've got my nice emoticons there, and then the ever popular GIFs that we want to use to accent what we're talking about, as well as I think these would be called stickers to some degree, and you can see I used a sticker there. So not just stickers that are kind of pre-canned. I can pick a sticker and then I can say something, whatever I want to say there. So it kind of gets automatically created. So all those things are available. Yes.
Can you show the filter for search?
Sure. So yeah, as you're searching through all these persistent messages that are lasting months and months, searching can happen in a couple of ways. From a chat perspective, we do have this filter button. So I filter. I'm wondering if I'm trying to figure out what word maybe I've said. So I'm certainly filtering on names, right? There's Nestor in all the places that I talk with Nestor. Let's search for test 1 2 3. I guess test 1 2 3. Why did it not find that? Actually, I guess so. We're searching through names and whatnot. If I come up here, this is more of a global search, which should find messages related to where I've said Nestor or test 1 2 3 across one-to-one chats as well as Teams chats. If there was any people associated with test 1 2 3, that would be found there, and then even documents that either have test 1 2 3 in the title, or even here I searched for roads. I found a PDF document. Roads is not in the title, but somewhere on page 23 or whatever in this PDF, the words roads is there, and so that's how that came up. So searching and filtering are certainly great ways to kind of sift through the ever-growing content that you'll have. And then I guess lastly, from this one-to-one chat perspective, you're one click away from turning this chat into a call or a meeting, whether it's audio or video or both. You also can share your desktop with that person as well. So again, you've got what I would kind of call mini meeting capabilities even in this one-to-one chat as well. So if we shift over to the Teams area, this is where you have again, the same conversations, but again, it's one that the whole team can see. It's you're talking to each other out in the open. We tend to call that working out loud, right? So whereas one-to-one chat, you're just chatting with the people you have invited. This is the whole team. Same concept in terms of your ability to do richly formatted chats. I will point out a couple other things though. If I wanted to kind of make something look a little more prominent, I like this reminder here. I would add a subject before I start typing. If I really wanted to be prominent, I would even use the announcement feature to give myself a nice, headline here in addition to my text. So you've got those options as well. And then a great feature too, if you're in a lot of teams and you got one message that you really want to get around to everyone, you can post it in multiple channels across all the teams that you're a part of. So that's a nice piece to kind of keep you from having to type a lot of stuff. But other than that, the same kind of things along the bottom that we saw in the one-to-one chat are there as well. And you can see here, if I can find a good example of maybe a longer running conversation. Let's take a look here at this one. So, administrators started up a conversation, and there are replies there which are nicely indented or into that thread. I can open them up and see other people's conversations, right? And so that's nice. Couple key pieces to even as we look at this one particular thread. One is, as I'm trying to reply to that particular thread or conversation, I want to use the reply button of that thread. If I start a new conversation, it'll look like it'll look like it's a part of the conversation initially, but as more messages coming in, you'll realize it's kind of an orphan message at this point, kind of off in the ether. So if you want your messages to continue to be associated with the conversation that this person started, remember to use that reply button as opposed to starting up a new conversation. And the other one that's super key important, and it's going to be one of my, what do I do first kind of comments later, is at mentions. So you can see here, Joni and Nestor have been at mentioned, and that's just the at symbol, and then mentioning a particular person, or maybe even mentioning a particular channel, which we'll talk about in a sec in the team. What that's doing is giving us a special notification just to make sure that that person is aware that you're trying to reach them. I hear that often, maybe 2 or 3 weeks after people have been using Teams. Hey, I've been using it, but people keep telling me they don't see my stuff. And I think part of that, what helps is more use of the at mention, right? To just make sure that either key people or everyone are able to get alerted about that message. So that's what we're seeing here, mentionings as well as replying to this particular thread. And just to keep that going, when we're talking about these notifications, those are going to show up here in our activity feeds. You can see where I've been mentioned, or I'm seeing where I've been added to Teams. I even just see additional activity in any kind of channels that I follow. But that activity happens here. This kind of becomes your new inbox from a Teams perspective. But your notifications are managed in a couple of ways. I would say, be sure at some point to click on your face or your profile picture or whatever up here and go to settings and manage your notifications here. I definitely would recommend keeping email on for personal mentions. Somebody really wants to hit you up, you don't want to miss that. So you can do that here. But in other places where if you're really trying to limit email notifications, you can turn them off, maybe for channel mentions or some other things, and even tell it how often to send you those missed activity emails as soon as possible, or maybe once every hour or something like that. So you want to come in here and set these according to how you like to be notified, or how, in my words, how naggy you want Teams to be with you from a notification perspective. And then the other place where notifications come in is in terms of the teams, hiding and making sure you show the teams that you want to get notifications on, and then channels that you really care about, making sure that you follow those channels. When I follow a channel, it's kind of like me saying I don't want to miss anything going on in this particular channel. There may be some channels that let's say I'm on this team, but I'm not really a part of the FY19 budget monitoring. So I'm going to hide that channel and I'm not going to follow it. Not only does that take that out of my view, but it decreases the amount of notifications I would get on that. So you guys can talk all day long about FY19 stuff. It's not going to bother me. I've hidden it. I've turned off the follow of that. I happen to be in a team in real life with 99 channels in it, and I only care about one of the channels. But life is still good. I hide 98 channels. I favorite or show one channel, and I follow that channel. I don't know, there's all kind of chatter going on in those 98 channels, and I'm oblivious to it. But as soon as something happens in my channel, I get the notification about it. So it tends to work. And you can see here, I'm showing 3, but clearly I'm a member of many others. They just happen to be ones that I don't need to have, right in front of me at any given time. So I've hidden others to kind of decrease the noise, let's say, and I'm showing the ones that I want to see, including showing the channels that I want to see, right? So that's a big question I get often, is how do I manage the volume? Those are the tips for kind of managing the volume: showing the right stuff, following the right stuff, and setting your notifications appropriately. So hopefully that makes sense. while we're in here, where we were talking about channels and what are they? They're really just places to have conversations about a specific thing. So in this business taxes and licenses, there's a dedicated place for us to chat about that. There's a dedicated place for files, and there's a dedicated place for tabs or apps related to that. And so that's really what that's about. I always recommend, other people may disagree, but I say make as many channels as you need, because the more channels you make, the more opportunities you give your team members to ignore things, right? We may not be a part of every particular part of this team. And so in our email inboxes, I have to process every message that goes to the team, even the ones I know don't concern me. This way, if you keep your conversations in the right channel, I can hide or unfollow the ones that I don't need to see on a regular basis.
Ricardo, I agree, and I see many of my customers taking the same approach with creating a team at the larger group level, and then really allowing folks to have the channels that they need to accomplish their work.
Absolutely. Yep. And from the last perspective, and all of these things we could dive into more, and hopefully I hope to dive into them over future sessions. But the last piece that's really nice about Teams is just a very simple files tab related to the files for that particular channel. You can see them here easily. You can click them, and without leaving Teams, you can be inside the document, to view it with another click. And this one's going a little slow here. Let me try another one here. With another click, you can edit it either in Teams, or if you prefer to do it in the desktop app or the browser, you can do that. In any of these options, you're doing it in a way that allows for real-time co-authoring, meaning if I edit and you edit, we're seeing each other's cursors move around the screen as we work. So we're seeing each other's real-time co-authoring, and with a click of a start conversation button, we could also have a conversation about it. In fact, this is an easy way for me to bring someone else in. Hey, Nestor, help me with this, right? I've mentioned Nestor. He's going to get a notification. He's going to click it. He's going to be right into this document with the rest of us, getting things done. All while we're doing this work, the rest of our team out here in the conversations area actually sees the chat that we're having about that document. They might get interested. They might want to jump in as well. Very open, way of collaborating. So that's really a key piece I wanted to mention, is files and documents and that ability to do real-time co-authoring. The days of you waiting until I'm done with my part for you to do your part, those days should be done. The days of sending these documents in email, we don't have to do that if we're all on the same team. We all have access to these documents. So it makes life great. Behind the scenes, this is just a SharePoint library. So if you are familiar with SharePoint, all the things you know about SharePoint still apply, but you can ignore it if you want in your team's life and just deal with the Files tab. But if you wanted to, you could open it up in SharePoint and see it in all of its SharePoint glory. At the end of the day, that business taxes and licenses is just one folder in a document library. Each channel gets its own folder. Is essentially what that is. So it's very nice, I think, to just have those files there. Uploading is as simple as you would expect. There's an upload button there, but even if I upload from this area as well, I can, an upload of a file here also puts it in that files area for that channel as well. Okay. Short of that, and based on the time we have, you're probably noticing other apps here pinned to the side. We won't really get into that today, but I will get into at least, you see your calendars for the meetings you have. This would be, your particular meeting, not necessarily the group's calendar. It's your calendar and the meetings that you have. The ability to call, which depending on your particular situation as you're viewing this, you may or may not have calling enabled for Teams, but it does allow for that. And then an area to see all the files either across your Teams or even to access your OneDrive account here. So again, I just always kind of laugh at Teams. It feels like Teams never wants me to leave it, right? It's trying to put all the things that I do in one spot so I never have to leave the app. So in my world, usually it's Outlook and Teams that are open all day long, because those are just the two primary places that I, get work done with others. I did show the search box. That's very useful for finding things across all of the teams you're in, and this area for setting your notifications and other areas as well, or other things as well. That is the high points. I wanted to we've got about 5 minutes. I wanted to give time if there were other questions maybe or anything someone wanted to see.
We do have another question that as CSMs we get all the time about how to deal with public records requests or things around these chats and documents. Can you address that?
Yeah, in the sake of time, I'll give the very high level view, but Teams plays in the security and compliance space just like the rest of the stack. So from an e-discovery perspective, these chats and documents are e-discoverable. The documents are really governed by SharePoint as they were before you even use Teams, right? Teams just uses your current SharePoint Online instance. But all that being said, e-discoverable, but also governed by your retention policy. So whether it's files or whether it's chat, setting a retention policy that says, hey, this thing should be deleted after a year, or hey, this thing should be kept for 7 years. All those kind of things apply for Teams files and chat as well. So yeah, I like to say it's not a one-off, or it's not a unicorn as it relates to your security and compliance for Office 365. It plays nicely in that space along with email and SharePoint and OneDrive files. Any other questions out there or things to see?
For now, I think we've touched on all the questions. We'll see if we get any new ones coming in.
Awesome.
Ricardo, one of the asks was if you were going to share the slide deck that you used today.
I can. I have been thinking about, for the audience that is probably on this, with the best way to do that. I will say for now, the link you use, which is that AKMS Office Hours 0365, continue to use that. I'm going to replace that after this meeting and after I give people a chance to see the recording with some kind of landing page for the presentation. At least that's what I'll figure out for now. So that'll be a way that I can get you. Of course, if you hopefully, I think most of you on this call probably already know me, and so you can certainly reach out to me and I can get it to you very easily. But for now, I think that AKMS link might be the best way to do that. And so speaking about that, let me go back to the slides for a sec, because I did want to do a kind of some closing thoughts here. Let's go. If you heard all of this, and hopefully it wasn't too overwhelming, but if you're really asking yourself, okay, Ricardo, what do I do after I hang up and I'm here at home and I'm trying to get work done? What's the first things I need to do? And this, my thoughts. One, chat. Understand that private chat is what you're used to from your Skype for Business Day. So maybe start there. If the other things feel a little overwhelming on the first day, start with private chat. That's what you were doing in Skype. But from a chat perspective, just remember the mentions. That's just going to really, I think, help some frustration about why can't people see my stuff. Use those app mentions. I think that'll really help. The second thing is just to remember that you have a documents area here, and I would say as much as you can use the Teams documents area, from start to finish. Start your documents in Teams, end them in Teams, because that really takes away this whole who can see what. Do I need to send X, Y, and Z to someone? If you do it in Teams where the rest of your team members already are, it'll just make the document piece a little more simple, and also you're doing it in a place that has that magic of real-time co-authoring, so people can help co-edit that document with you very easily without any big bells and whistles. And then the last thing I'd say is make some channels. Don't worry about making too many channels. Make some channels if there's a topic that your team works on. If it's something you would make a folder in Outlook or a folder in on your network drive, it probably should be a channel. And make as many as you need. You can always back out later, I guess, but don't be afraid of channels. I sometimes see people 2 weeks using Teams and they still just have that general channel. And you're really just not fully leveraging Teams for what it is. That's almost like just you're back to another email inbox, one inbox where you're processing everything. Make some channels, commit to kind of using those channels for your conversations, and I think that will really help. So if you were looking for some very simple go-dos, this is what I would say. Chat with mentions, documents in Teams, and be free with your use of channels. Outside of that, these are some links. If you are looking for additional info, these are a few links I think will be useful. This first one is really the landing page for tons of content. I mean, tons of content here. So that's definitely our official one. This teamsdemo.office.com might be nice. It's maybe 5 minutes long, I guess, but it's an interactive one. It kind of will tell you to click here and kind of simulate using Teams. So that might be an easy way. You can't break it, right? Just click through and get a feel for using Teams. That's a nice one. And I also have this link here, 5 minutes. Basically gives you access to a couple short videos and some links and things, but that might be a snackable piece as well. Was there a comment or a question there? Okay. So we're at the 11 o'clock hour. That's what I have. Again, continue to keep up with me if if you're one of my accounts, or keep up with that URL in terms of the next one. I know I'm not sure when the next one will be just yet, but at some point I'd like to get these done regularly if we think this is useful. So I will definitely keep you abreast of when the next one will be, but hopefully I hope this was helpful. All right. I will keep the Q&A. I will end this session now, but I'll keep the Q&A going. Continue to ask questions, I think, and we'll continue to answer them. So thanks for joining.
Thank you, Ricardo.